Hi, thank you for joining. My name's Tammy. Welcome to the InsideUni, Black Students at Oxford and Cambridge Q&A. InsideUni is a non-profit student-led project to make Oxford and Cambridge applications more accessible. We crowdsource application advice from current students, which you can find for free on our website, insideuni.org. Today, we're going to be talking about the experiences of Black students at Oxbridge. It can be quite confusing when you apply, so we're going to demystify the process. This is part of our InsideUni live Q&A series where you can ask questions directly to Oxbridge students about different aspects of uni life. So we have some pre-submitted questions, but we'll also be taking live questions in the YouTube comments. So if there's anything you want to know, please just ask us via the YouTube chat. Also, feel free to say hello in the comments. We'll say hi back. So yeah, so I'm just going to introduce 𝗪𝗪 and 𝗪𝗳 to introduce themselves and taking up space.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So yeah, my name is 𝗪𝗪. I was at Cambridge, well, I started in 2015, so it's quite a while now, and graduated in 2018. I did history, and now I am currently a future trainee solicitor at a London law firm. So I'll be starting there in September. But apart from that, and aside from that, I co-authored a book called Taking Up Space, which essentially details what our experience and a load of other women and non-binary people as well, what life was like going to a higher education institution in the UK. So that's everything from the curriculum all the way to mental health, relationships, and also access into university, which is, again, something that we'll probably definitely discuss today. So in that book, we were able to really detail what that experience was like, but also how it can be better as well. Yeah, that's me. I'll pass on to 𝗪𝗳.
Hi everyone, my name's 𝗪𝗳. I am the other half of Taking Up Space. So I also wrote Taking Up Space with 𝗪𝗪. I did human, social and political sciences at Cambridge at Jesus College. And I'm currently working in Nigeria. I work for the Vice President, which is fun and I love. And yeah, hopefully you can answer some questions today and expand off some of the things that we spoke about in the book. Even though I think that's pretty comprehensive, but like, if there's anything else that you want to hear, feel free to ask.
Okay, so now we'll be passing on to the Cambridge to talk about,
Hi, my name's Oluchi. I'm a first-year human, social and political science student at the University of Cambridge and at Newnham College. And I am the access officer, one of the access officers for ACS. And just to quickly clarify, ACS stands for African Caribbean Society and is open to all students of African and Caribbean descent. And its main aims are usually to entertain, to support, and to educate.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I am a second-year medical student and I'm at the University of Oxford. I've just finished my term as the Oxford ACS Vice President. And yeah, just like Oluchi was saying, the ACS is very much a safe space for African and Caribbean students within Oxbridge and also other universities that have ACSs. And as well as doing access for students who want to enter Oxford and Cambridge, we also focus on making students at the actual universities comfortable as well.
Hi everyone, hope you guys are all having a calm weekend. My name's Phoenix and I'm a second year medic at Pembroke College. And just like Jess, I had my term of office this year. I was senior access and outreach officer. And yeah, it's been an amazing experience, very enlightening, very enriching. Again, ACS is more like my home away from home. And as everyone said, it's a very, very safe space.
Hi everyone, I'm Zute. I just finished my first year doing medicine at Jesus College at Cambridge. I'm the other access officer at Cambridge. And yeah, it's been really exciting so far. Had some events, and I just really love doing access events like this to help kind of demystify the whole Oxbridge application process and to support people who want to apply as well.
Okay, thank you everyone. And so now we're going to talk about what made you apply to Oxford or Cambridge. So yeah, let's get started. Jessica?
For me, I think what made me apply to Oxford, obviously there's sort of like Oxford has a big name, has a lot of weight, so there's obviously that, and I can't ignore it. I think there was always a kind of, when I was younger, there was always the idea of, oh, Oxford is this like incredible, like mystical uni where all the smart people go. So I kind of thought it was cool. But I think once I got older, towards like sixth form years, because I'd never really seen it as something, as like a realistic option. It was more of just like a fantasy, I guess. When I got to sixth form, I think the reason why I wanted to go to Oxford was mainly because of the way that they did my course. So Oxford medicine is it's a very, very traditional format. And you do a first degree, which is basically just a science degree, and then you do a second degree, which is like the degree that makes you a doctor. And I just hate being like thrown into the deep end of things, so I just wanted to learn all the theory first. So I like the fact that the Oxford degree was like really theoretical. I think that's kind of what drew me to applying to it. I guess like the course structure.
Yeah, I'm similar to what Jess was saying in terms of the course structure, because that was probably the main reason. Because similar to Oxford, at Cambridge, the medical course is very traditional as well. There's a really big emphasis on science and knowing like the basic sciences before you start doing stuff as like a fourth, fifth, or sixth year. I think additionally as well, because Oxford and Cambridge have quite similar medical courses, I think visiting the unis is a good way to like find out whether you enjoy the vibe, because you're going to be living there for a while. So although I haven't visited Oxford, I did go to Cambridge, and I just generally liked the atmosphere. It was quite like a peaceful town. It's fairly quiet, and the buildings are really nice. I had a look at like some of the colleges, and I just like the general environment. So that, as well as the kind of course I was looking for, that was probably my main reason to apply.
So I think, I think for me, there were definitely a few reasons, but I think the main reason was that my dad thought it was a good idea. You know, I talk about this in Taking Up Space a lot, but he was telling people I was going to Cambridge before he was so confident I could do it, very much thought that I should. I don't think I really knew very much about what Oxford and Cambridge were until about year 11, when some girls from 2 years above me had got offers to Oxford and Cambridge, and they announced their names in assembly, and I was like, what's Oxbridge? And then kind of got the sense that like, okay, this is this like these prestigious unis that like people go to, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'll think about it. But I'd also experienced like a little bit of disappointment at school by that point already. Like I'm not going to say I underperformed at GCSE. I think I did very well at GCSE, but like I was predicted grades and I got slightly less than them. I applied for scholarships and I didn't get them. So I kind of had it in my head that I could aim for Cambridge, but whether or not I was actually going to get in was a different question. But yeah, I think once I did set my mind in it, I went to a summer school there the summer before I applied, and that really kind of helped it become my dream. So it went from becoming my dad's fantasy to something that I actually wanted for myself. And that helped drive me, that helped motivate me. I just got a sense of the course I wanted to do as well. My dad actually really wanted me to do law, and I had to make a very strong case as to why law was not what I felt like I was being called to do, and actually that I was a lot more interested in politics and sociology. And he was, I think, a bit skeptical, but my final kind of line of push was, look, I'm not going to get into Cambridge for law. Let's put it that way. And I think he was understanding enough of that to, yeah, let me apply for something else. And applying to HSPS was definitely a good idea. It was a great fit for me. The fact that I'm working in government now, I think is a testament to that. But yeah, my reason for applying, sorry, I have a friend in my room. My reason for applying was definitely initially because of my dad, and then eventually because of me.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. So we're moving into like the main section of this Q&A. So we're going to answer some of the pre-submitted questions. We'll also be answering the live questions, so feel free to comment any. So over to you, Zute.
Yeah, so the first one here is, what's your favorite part of uni life? That's an interesting one, because like I think it's going to be very different for everyone, but I think the good thing about uni is that you really get the chance to sort of like explore whatever you want to do, and uni just gives you the space to do that. So firstly, I think the diversity of societies you can get involved in and sports. For example, I do athletics, and there's an athletics team, and like being part of a team and you know, like kind of working towards like a goal, competing against other unis. Oxford as well, we compete against Oxford for different sports. And I think just having that and having that space to do all those things is what's really great. And I think secondly as well, I guess that when you're applying to Oxbridge in general, we are at the end of the applying because it's quite a academic course, and the sort of things I've been learning about my course has been really interesting. For example, so for anatomy, we do a lot of dissection, where you kind of have a cadaver and then you kind of have a look at the structures, do it for yourself. And I think because it's very hands-on, I think it's been a really good way to learn the anatomy. So I think those two things and other things people will chip in as well. Just having that space and being able to really delve into an area that you're interested in. That's what I really enjoyed about uni life.
So for me, it's a mix between the people you meet and the things that make Cambridge very Cambridge. So in terms of the people you meet, you're surrounded by all sorts, people from backgrounds that you might not be used to. You might find a lot more people that are like you than you think. I just think it's really interesting to hear different people's opinions and like their different worldviews. It's just a melting pot of really interesting people. And then the things about Cambridge that you won't really get anywhere else except from maybe Oxford or other traditional universities, like, I don't know, punting, the formals, the people that you get, like those things are very, I don't know, Harry Potter-esque is an awesome part of it because it makes you feel like, okay, I'm going somewhere really special. So yeah.
I think for me, it's probably two things. Like, as was said before, like the people that you meet, like loads of people will say like, the people you meet, it's like the people there at uni that make the university and make your experience there. And I've met some amazing people, some very interesting characters, again, all from different walks of life. And I feel like when you're at home or you're like at secondary school or sixth form, you're kind of in a bubble with like people kind of from your area and kind of people who think the same as you. But when you go to university, you're meeting people who have been raised differently, come from like literally different parts of the whole world. So having interesting convos and just seeing people's different experiences has been really interesting. I think secondly, for me, it's got to be the independence and the freedom. Like I'm from like a big household that's always really busy and lively and people always screaming and shouting and like crying and like like there's always like just something going on in the house. But coming to university where you're in your own space, initially it can be kind of like, oh wow, like, you know, this isn't the crazy household I grew up in, like it's just me, myself and I. But like it's always nice, even you can hear my brother screaming in the background. But like you get to kind of just take things at your own pace. You just have that freedom. You can go out whenever you want to go out. You can eat whatever you want to eat. You can do whatever you want to do. And like for me, my mum was quite always on my back. Like I wasn't allowed to go to parties. And if I did go to parties, I'd be getting that message at 9:45, like, where are you? Like, I'm going to call the police, like all of that kind of stuff. At uni, you just kind of get to do your thing and live your own life. So I would definitely say the independence and the freedom is my favorite part of uni.
Okay, next question we've got, have Oxford and Cambridge changed a lot in recent years? So we being Chelsea and I graduated in 2018. And I think I'm just looking at what I can see now. I don't think they've changed that much. One of the biggest changes I think I've seen personally is in the number of Black students that are there. So there's literally 3 times as many Black students there now as there were when we were there. And that's great because when Chelsea and I were there, I was ACS president and Chelsea was ACS vice president. We did a lot of work to try and increase access for Black students. So it's nice to see, like looking back, that like some of that has at least paid off. Has it changed a lot? But for the most part, no. I mean, you have to remember that these institutions we're talking about are actually centuries old. Change isn't something that really happens overnight. And yes, 5 years is overnight in Cambridge. So yeah, things take time. There are things that we were fighting for then that it feels like we're still fighting for now. But yeah, small changes. But I think for me, the most inspiring thing to see is that there are a lot more Black students there now than there were when we were there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree. Ora's right. Like, we can only expect so much change. But I think for us as students, and it can be seen as a shame, but also a positive, but we do almost have a responsibility to always be, you know, hounding our universities to do better for us, because in the meantime, whilst they're working on their strategies or they're releasing statements and things like that, we're still at the university trying to get our degree, and we still need support and we still need help. But I think when we kind of talk about have Oxford and have Cambridge changed a lot in recent years, again, we need to understand that they're also collegiate universities. So, for example, I went to Homerton and Ora went to Jesus. Jesus may have been well ahead in terms of how they approached access, but for Homerton, they could have been quite behind. And I think it just depends who you have in your college who is rooting for you, but also how that feeds into a wider understanding of what the university is and what it stands for. But I agree with Ora. I think in total, it probably hasn't changed that much. I think what universities have been a lot better at doing is saying that they're going to do stuff and saying that they're going to change stuff. And for us, we have to look at whether behind all of that there's, you know, tangible change. And like I said, that is looking at what your college does. So for example, going to a college that's your own small, I guess in a way, small university, it's where you eat, it's where you socialize with your friends, it's normally where you live as well. And that may divide things into how you take your supervisions or in terms of who you go to your lectures and things like that with. So a college can almost be like your small little hub at the same time. But yeah, that's what I mean in terms of how we see the college as feeding into a wider understanding of what Oxford is and what Cambridge is. But yeah, I completely agree with Ora. I would definitely say it probably hasn't changed that much.
Okay, so on to the next question. How did you tackle the not fitting in mentality? Have you ever felt alienated or experienced racism, and how did you deal with it? So I guess kind of ironically, the majority of like the not fitting in mentality for me happened before I actually got in, like before I actually arrived in Oxford. So for secondary school, I was in a reasonably like diverse state school. But then for sixth form, I moved to a very predominantly white, predominantly middle class, just like very, very wealthy school. And that was nothing I'd ever experienced before in my life. And it was a complete like paradigm shift for me. Like a lot of the time I felt very isolated because no one really understood what I was going on about. No one, like if I made a reference about like, I don't know, like frying plantain with my mom, no one in my school fried plantain. So they had no idea what I was talking about. So little things like that kind of built up into like bigger things like microaggressions and just generally just feeling very other to people in my school. And when I got into Oxford, my biggest concern was, oh my gosh, I've basically just applied to a university that is my school, but just on a bigger scale. Like there's just more people and there's less diversity. So I was terrified, and I honestly almost withdrew my application, my offer from Oxford, because I just thought I can't do this again. I don't want to be in an environment where I don't feel like I can fully be myself. So I think the things that sort of helped me to cope with it was predominantly Oxford ACS. I mean, that's why I guess I became vice president this year, because they've just given so much to me. I wanted to give back. But they had like an offer holders day, and it gave me an opportunity to go to Oxford to meet other Black students who'd gotten in. who were in my year, and to talk to them and see that they were actually normal people. Like, they weren't strange Oxford robots, and I was going to be able to hold conversations with them. And also, once I actually got into the university and I started going there, accepting the fact that my college was not going to be a diverse place. I wasn't going to see the same scenes I would see when I was walking down the road in London. It was going to be predominantly white people, and it was a predominantly white space. But just because someone is different to me does not mean that I can't engage with them and I can't have a relationship with them. And I think kind of breaking down that barrier that I had of, because I'm different, we're not going to be able to get along. And I guess kind of celebrating the differences that were around me, which was kind of, it was hard at first because I just wasn't used to, I wasn't used to being in a space that was just that lacked so much diversity. But just, I guess, putting myself out there and trying to test the waters and see if I could actually make friends, that really helped. And then in terms of experiencing racism, I've been very fortunate that whilst my college isn't that diverse, my college is very supportive in terms of like the Black students. If there are any problems or we experience any things like microaggressions, they're very receptive to picking those up and to taking action. And I think just trying to develop that relationship with your college, like being open with people about what makes you feel uncomfortable and what makes other students in marginalized groups or in minority groups feel uncomfortable, is kind of the only way to make it more of a positive space and more of a comfortable space for you, just being upfront and open.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Jessica said, and I think she's like somehow managed to capture like everything I was actually about to say like really nicely as well. I think the only thing that I was gonna add as well, in terms of the experiencing racism, I think what Jess mentioned was particularly apt, because you're not really going to experience outright racism. I mean, it's going to be rare that will happen, if at all. But I think it's more in the case of microaggressions, things like being stopped by porters, or just people not using the people not being aware of like, or people not reading the room is what I like to say. People not reading the room. So I think what I would say about that is, I think Oxford and Cambridge come under fire a lot about being especially not diverse or being especially white. But I think when you think about the wider working environment and just the UK in general, I used to live in Yorkshire, so I know what it's like to be actually in a place that's more representative of what the UK is like. I think other universities and other spaces in the UK are particularly not very diverse as well. So I think bearing in mind everything that Jess said, being open and being receptive to finding out about other people, I think that's definitely the mindset to approach it with, because whether it's at uni or just in the wider working place, you're probably going to be confronted with a space where you're going to be a minority. And I think having that mindset where you're just willing to, explore and just to find out more about other people is kind of the best way that I try to deal with it as well. And just having your mind open to lots of different things so you can sort of work with it. And the colleges, if you hold them to account, they're willing to listen to you and to make changes. Whether it's like training, so implicit bias training is something that my college is working more on because of previous experiences, and that just goes to show that you can actually have a say and an impact on how things play out, to make it a more to make it a nicer space for you to kind of take up. But yeah, I hope that made sense.
Okay, so the next question is, with the fact that we are unable to visit the actual uni for open days, how do you suggest we get a feel for the colleges and the campus? And I think I speak for all of us who say we all like feel for you, this situation sucks, but there are definitely things you can do to kind of get around that. Like, I didn't visit all the universities that I applied for, and YouTube was definitely a big way that I kind of got a feel, looking at people's vlogs, looking at the colleges and room tours and all that type of thing. You can look at alternative prospectuses, because you can get a student perspective, which I think is really helpful than just, the college trying to portray themselves in the best light. The student room, I would recommend with a pinch of salt. Like, don't take everything that people say there by heart, but it can be useful. And yeah, and also just reaching out to Oxford and Cambridge students. Like people are really friendly, and if you just DM someone or email people that are within ACS, they'd be really happy to kind of speak to you about their experiences and answer any questions you have. And also you can just go for a visit if that's something that's available to you, especially when things are kind of opening up. So if you just want to go to Cambridge or go to Oxford and, I don't know, have a picnic, see how things are, you can kind of get a sense of the vibe without going into university buildings. So yeah.
Yeah, as pretty much was said before. You can look at the student room. You can look at alternative prospectuses. If you also go on the websites for the different colleges, you'll find that there's a lot of information. There might be like virtual tours where you can like see things like from a 360 perspective. And also open days are still going on, but they're going on online. So again, there's a series of different Q&As or like different talks that you can attend, asking like student members of those different colleges any questions that you might have. Again, with this whole college thing, like the normal case is like whatever college you end up in, you kind of like. That was my personal experience. I can't speak for everyone, but people generally seem to, you know, enjoy the college that they go to quite well. I didn't actually apply to my specific college. I applied to a different one, but I ended up getting pulled at the college I'm at right now, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. But I think when going online and looking at like the different information about different colleges, look for things like how much is rent going to cost, how far away is your accommodation from your faculty, what professor or tutors do the different colleges have, because if a tutor that, you know, might be specializing in something that you're really interested in is at one college, you might want to go there as opposed to another. Again, the endowment of different colleges, like generally Oxford and Cambridge, they're just very the colleges are just very rich. They have a lot of money, but there's also like discrepancy between each different one. So if you might want to go for a richer college, you might want to apply there as opposed to a different one. Again, how far away is your college from different shops? Like my college is right outside McDonald's, so I'm there every day. Like it's right outside the mall, so it's very convenient for me. It's very convenient for me. Some people might be a bit farther. So again, just look at all of this information, but you can find that on Wikipedia, the student room, the alternate prospectuses, and also on the websites. All right. For the next question, we've got, what are your top 3 personal statement tips? All right. I think, like, first and foremost, I think it's like you've got to be yourself. You have to be yourself. I think when it comes to personal statement writing, a lot of people think, you know, I've got to lie about this, I've got to lie about that, I need to try and da-da-da-da-da. I think what people look at when they mainly look at your personal statement is that passion and that interest, and that stems from you just being yourself and just talking about the topics that you've studied that really interest you, as opposed to like, oh, let me just sound smart, let me just say this. I think it's important to, you know, be unique and make your personal statement yours and speak about your own experiences and how your own experiences like separate you from everybody else. Personally, I spoke about my time in Uganda doing work experience in the different hospitals and like my perspective of that and how it changed my perception of, you know, medicine and the human body and things like that. I think it's important to kind of, I don't know how it works for other subjects, but I think what I found quite useful for medicine was making your personal statement almost kind of have a theme. So it almost kind of flows, like almost like a story where you're not putting loads of different things together that aren't really of relevance. You're almost talking about, I did this work experience and this work experience was related to this book that I read, and this book was related to this scientific paper I read and this topic I covered in school. And it's kind of almost showing this really interested me. And as a result of this interest, I was proactive and I did this and I did this and I did this. And you almost put that all together, again, approaching it from a unique perspective. This is what I like, you know. Yeah, I think that's a very good method when it comes to personal statement writing. So everything kind of has a theme and flows. And I think, again, just don't lie. I think that's the biggest thing. Do not lie in your personal statement. Just tell the truth. Again, I don't know how, again, I know people's interview experiences are all completely different. But one of my friends wrote in his personal statement that he could play the piano and he couldn't. And in a strange interview, he was asked like about what he thought about, like, oh yeah, like what piece have you learned recently about like the piano? And he had nothing to say. He was confused because he didn't actually, like, he wasn't up to date with his personality piano playing because he doesn't play the piano. So I think it's just important that you don't lie, you be honest, you be yourself, and you really think about your interests, whether it's writing down all of your work experiences, all of like the lectures you've seen, the seminars, the books you've read, the podcasts, everything you've done, and maybe looking how you can connect that to that and connect that to that and put it together almost like a story. But yeah.
I think for me, I've been a personal statement tutor for a few years. So what I tell my students, I guess I'm going to kind of condense it into 2 tips as opposed to 3. But the first thing I always tell them is your personal statement is about 2 things: being interested and interesting. That's what people who are reading your personal statement want to see. In terms of being interesting, that is basically using your personal statement as an opportunity to really reflect on what you've done to get you to this point. They want to see your thought process. They want to see how you think. They want to see what sort of student you are. So the way that you show that you're interesting is by showing your thought process. That's what sets you sets you apart as an individual. So I often kind of tell my students, don't put a sentence in your personal statement that doesn't have some sort of reflection in it. Like, make every sentence have a point, some sort of like reflective meaning. Don't just say I read a book. Say I read a book and I thought this on it, or I read a book and this is my favorite part, or I read a book and it led me to do this. And then in terms of showing that you're interested, just detail the things that you have done to show that this is actually a degree that you genuinely want to do and you are genuinely passionate about. So if it's that you've gone to talks, if it's that you've done, little extra credit projects at school, if it's you've read around or you've spoken to someone who does a degree, like, don't be afraid to put that in, because they want to see that you are actually genuinely invested in doing this degree and that you're going to be a pleasure to teach, because we're going to be teaching you for however long the degree is. And so I guess that's 2 tips in 1. And then for my 3rd tip, I would just say, obviously don't lie in your personal statement, as Phoenix has already said, but also make sure that you don't put anything in your personal statement that you're not very confident about. Because if you see your personal statement as almost like a jumping board for an interview, if they were to use your personal statement in an interview, which it may or may not happen, obviously interviews are all different, but if they were to ask you on your personal statement, if you wouldn't be confident talking about what you've written, then you probably shouldn't put it in, or you should read more about it before you definitely put it in the final draft. So just make sure that everything you've written, you are confident enough to speak about in an interview setting. That's what I would say.
And just to add on to all the points made previously, it's really important that in your personal statement, you don't cram in like a million books, because at the end of the day, the personal statement is short. It's not a long like essay, paragraph or anything. You need to make sure that everything you're saying, you're genuinely passionate about and you can speak on, like Phoenix and Jessica have been saying. So it's about quality, not quantity. That's just my little tip.
Okay, so for the next question, would you say that the university has an adequate support system for Black students? Do students in societies like the African Caribbean Society do most of the work? I think it's a really interesting question, because, I mean, personally, I'd say probably students in societies, and I say that just do most of the work. I think it's a really interesting disconnect between what happens within the top offices of universities in general, but then you also have what's kind of happening on the ground as well. So for a lot of us as students, and like I was mentioning beforehand, we're still trying to get our degrees, we want support, and I think the easiest way and the quickest way to do that is to lean on a friend, or is to find a society, or find people who go for things that you do, things that you're interested in. And I think when you seek change through a university, there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through before you can even get a response, even get an answer. And who knows, within that amount of time, you could be dealing with a really, really, really bad, let's say in terms of support, mental health crises, or you just need somebody to talk to. and there's not necessarily the time you can be able to jump through bureaucracy. So I personally do think that ACS and societies do most of the work, but not in a negative way. It generally tends to be better, tends to be more in touch with what you really want as a student anyway.
Okay, moving on to the next question. What do you think the future for African Caribbean students looks like at Cambridge with the recent events? I'm going to pass that to Oluchi.
Okay, so that's a difficult question to answer just because we don't know what the world's going to look like after recent events. But I think in general, I've noticed a shift in the way that my college, for example, interacts with me, because I'm a BME officer. And I think in general, Black students and Black people have been empowered to not only ask for change, but to demand for change. So the college is seeing that things like anti-racist training and things like supporting your Black students is not something that you should have to consider, something that you should do. That's what you're paid to do. So I think there definitely, hopefully, will be a shift to colleges being less bureaucratic when it comes to giving support, hopefully reacting quicker. I'm not sure about the general atmosphere of colleges and the university in terms of people being more sensitive. I think people maybe will be careful about what they say, but I'm not sure about people actually changing their minds, you know what I mean? And being less racist in terms of the way they think. But hopefully things are different, but I'm not too sure.
This is a really interesting question, actually. In taking up space, there was a sense that the diversity programs aren't really planned by the university. Instead, is this a responsibility that students have to advocate for more than the university itself? So I think here, and what I try to convey in taking up space, so this was in the Access chapter, was that it's almost a bit of a debate, because I think what you have is, you have universities essentially outsourcing their resources. That could be in the sense of money, in sense of status, when they're saying to it could be an agency, a consultancy firm, a recruitment firm, saying that, right, you guys are the experts, and essentially we're admitting that we need help. Will you be able to tell us where we're going wrong? How do we apply contextual data to our students? Once they get here, once they're in Oxbridge, how do we support them? So I think for a lot of people, I think here, and what I try to say was that it's almost a bit of a debate, outsourcing their resources. It could be an agency, a consultant need help, and there's people seeking ways that they can apply contextual data, how do we support them? So I think for a lot of people help, and they're seeking ways that they can do that, realizing who are used to working with young Black, often working class kids as well. But I think on the flip side, and this is why I tried to present it as a bit of a debate, you also question, well, if the university is constantly outsourcing these institutions and industries, are they really reflecting and understanding how they themselves can make tangible change? And when it comes to asking themselves that question, do they start darting? Do they have questions? Do they have answers? So I think you can look at it in both sides, but I think as long as we're looking at the end goal, and as we're essentially getting more Black students into Oxbridge, that should be seen as a positive change. But as long as they're also supported once they get there, I think we then need to progress the conversation further, instead of just saying it's enough to have representation, because that's never enough. And that's often where, representation and ideas fall down. So we need to make sure that it's adequate change we can take hold of. But yeah, that's what I try to present in the book. I try to make a bit of a debate, how it can be seen as positive, but also negative at the same time.
Within your subject, have you studied something you have felt to be racist? Was it acknowledged, e.g. evaluating Kantian ethic without contextualizing him as a racist? And did you feel you could discuss this with your supervisor? Okay, definitely studied lots of racist content. I studied human, social, and political sciences, whole of political theory first year. I think Fanon was the only person we studied, and he got about a third of a lecture. I know that's changed now, but I mean, we talk about this in Taking Up Space. That's changed after years of student work to try and get things like this changed. Also, universities are awake, like they're not sleeping through all these conversations we're having at the moment. And I imagine that there's going to be even more change before you guys, I'm talking to you guys being future applicants, get there. But yeah, I definitely had to study racist content. I was very outspoken about how questionable some of the content was. So I remember in an international relations lecture in first year, they were talking about industrialization. They had a whole lecture in industrialization without a single mention of how much of the UK was built off the back of slaves. And so I raised it and he got all weird about it. But obviously that was not the last he heard of it and from me. So when at the end of the year, we had to review the class, I just made it very clear in my feedback form. I named the lecturer, I named the lecturer. And yeah, you got to name and shame them. To be fair, he left anyway, but like for separate reasons. I think he was retiring. But I was very outspoken. Like I had my supervisor, who was my director of studies, actually used to sit on like a board of people who write like curriculum stuff. And I knew that, and I kind of just took advantage of that and made sure I was very open, particularly in discussions with him. Because I don't think you necessarily have to talk to every single supervisor about all these issues that you're having when it comes to racist content, but be strategic in the ones that you do talk to. So I would just make sure that the ones I knew were in the rooms that were making the decisions were the ones I was being as outspoken with as possible, because they're the ones who could help me enact actual real change. But yeah, it's not the end of the world. You have some opportunities for independent study where you can kind of combat that to some degree. Again, I don't want to spoil Taking Up Space for anyone who hasn't read it, but you can read that and decide how, you know, whether independent study is actually a space where you can do that, because there are also risks that come with that as well. Your independent study will still be marked by people who are within the university. So it's not enough to just be like, oh, well, I can write my own essay in my own time. It's not quite that. But yeah, you will have to study racist content. It's not just an Oxbridge issue. It's a national, it's a academia issue, like globally, and how Eurocentric and white it is. But yeah, that's kind of what we're here for, and that's one of the benefits of being in that space, is that we can add our voices to the conversation, and begin to change some of that from the inside in some kind of way. Be adventurous with your examples, which is sometimes risky, but it depends on how worth it we think the fight is. Have conversations with people who are in strategic positions to make real change, and yeah, stay in your lane and like focus on your work, kind of thing. Just you're there to get your degree at the end of the day. So yeah, those are kind of my little pointer answers.
Okay, so next question is, do you feel as though professors and admin take race seriously and with an open mind? And this is kind of linked to what Ora was talking about. I think this is one of the disadvantages of the collegiate system. It really does depend. Colleges really do. They're more similar than they're different, I would say, but they do have different cultures, and it really just depends on where you end up, because your college will determine your supervisors. In terms of lecturers, I think they think they're taking it seriously by, for example, in HSPS, putting 2 Black people on the course and not doing them properly. They're not doing enough, but I feel like in terms of college staff at Newnham, from my experience, again, they feel like they're taking it seriously, but I feel like there's a lot more they could do, and they don't prioritize it as they should. I think they see taking race seriously as encouraging Black students to apply, and then they think job well done. But I think a lot of students are pushing for the conversation to be more about, how are you supporting Black students? How do Black students feel once they're here? And I think in that case, they're not taking it seriously in terms of how comfortable Black students feel at Cambridge. But that's something that people are working on and fighting for every day.
Okay, so the next question is, have you ever felt weird about having an ethnic name? So I'll pass that on to Ore.
Have I ever felt weird about having an ethnic name? Oh yeah, no, like absolutely not. But then again, I'm the kind to not feel weird about that kind of thing. So if you do, like, that's okay. But there's a whole section in the beginning of Taking Up Space where I talk a bit about kind of like my battle with my name. I was very set on making sure that people said my name right at Cambridge. That was not something that I was going to budge on. And I think sometimes my advice would be to start kind of how you wish to continue. Don't tolerate people saying your name wrong at the beginning, because it will stick. And I made that mistake in secondary school, and so I promised myself I would not make that mistake when I got to uni. So yeah, I don't think so. Like, your name carries so much culture and richness, especially if it's not English. Like, no offense to people with English names, that's not meant to be like a bad thing. Obviously, Charles has an English name, like, it's not the point. But I'm just saying, don't try and feel like you have to make yourself palatable. And one of the ways people do that is kind of by shortening and like anglicizing their names to try and fit in. And I would say embrace it. It's part of what makes you who you are. You know, your parents chose that name for you for a reason. I know it's hard, but just try as much as possible at the beginning to kind of be strict about how your name should be said, because they have no problem saying Tchaikovsky at the end of the day, so they can learn how to say your name. So yeah.
So the next question is, would you say that the university is supporting, staying neutral, or inhibiting the decolonization of the curriculum? Well, from my experience, what the kind of like groups that we've been part of, so Oluchi and I are part of this widening participation group where they have like they've invited us to kind of talk, and essentially they've let us know that decolonizing the curriculum is something that they are working towards. Now I know that it's going to take time, and there's going to be a process involved with making sure that the curriculum is less Eurocentric. I guess from a medicine perspective, and I guess it's sort of like more a thing in the clinical years, things like diseases that only affect, well, the way that disease present for certain races will be different, particularly with dermatology, where like if you're basing it off like hives, for example, then if you're Black, you can't really experience that. So I think we've particularly raised it up with the university. We had like a massive open letter where the medical students told them that this is an issue, and that they are listening and people are in discussion with the university. And I know for humanities, I can't speak much for that, but I know that at least there's a group who are working towards this kind of thing. So in short, I think they are supporting, but I think it will take a lot of time for the curriculum to really be decolonized. But if anyone wants to add something, then feel free to.
Yeah, building on what Zute's been saying, the university is taking decolonizing the curriculum very seriously. I think in terms of HSPS, it's been easier for humanities subjects to obviously have a greater range of different authors, because obviously it's a bit easier than with some science-based subjects. However, it's not impossible. And that's something that the university is working on. And I think as students, we will obviously work very closely with them to make sure that every single subject can be as diverse as humanly possible, because we want to see a variety of different readings and resources that really represent the diverse people that can come to Cambridge or Oxford. So moving on to the next question. So that's for Phoenix, yeah.
Have you ever felt hindered due to finances at university? I think this is a really, really important question, because loads of people don't actually know about how the university can support you financially before you get there. I think I was one of them. Before I accepted my offer to Oxford, I got an offer to Imperial, and because it was in London and wasn't very far away from where I lived, I wanted to just stay at home because I didn't think I was going to be able to afford university. I thought if I just stayed at home, obviously I wouldn't have to pay rent because I'd be here. But luckily, I got sent an email actually about a bursary that Oxford was offering, known as the 𝗧𝗎𝗏 scholarship, but it's now known as Crankstart. And essentially it gives you a grant that is you don't have to pay it back. it's about 3,700 a year. I think it might have changed now to 5,000. But yeah, it's amazing. And I think also in regards to the student loan, if you apply to be means tested, which is something that you should always remember to do, you can apply for an extra amount, which I have found very useful. It's meant that I've been able to like live at uni, and I've never felt like, oh, I can't go out tonight, or I can't buy this, I can't go to dinner here, I can't do that, I can't do that. I haven't felt restricted from my financial situation as I have normally when I feel at home. And yeah, I think there's also loads of college-based bursaries as well. Again, it differs depending on what college you go to, but if you ever have any financial problems, you can always speak to people at your college, as in who actually work there, and they can set you up with a bursary. Again, they look at your household income and they can just take it from there. But yeah, there are loads of bursaries on offer that can help you through your university experience.
Thank you so much, Phoenix. So we're moving on to our last question, and we need the answer to be very brief, just because we're getting close to the end of the Q&A. Thank you everyone for all the amazing answers. So the question is it tiring having to fight for racial awareness and doing what the university should be doing? So over to you, Chelsea.
Yes. I mean, I always found it really, really, really frustrating and just annoying that we were doing things that the university should be doing and should have been doing for decades before us. I mean, we want to go to university, meet new people, enjoy ourselves, and honestly just have a good time. Like for in case of doing a history degree, for 3 years, I wanted to be able to just enjoy myself. And, you know, I'm chucked into an environment where I'm with so many different people that I've never met before. And there are so many different things that you can try. And that's what university is meant to be about. It's a learning curve in your life, and it's about having that independence. So it is tiring, but I think you look at the bigger picture. And I guess that's why we're all here today. And we're happy to talk to prospective students because it's so important. This is something that's bigger than us. And whether we're tired or not, you know, it will pay off in the end. And that's how I like to see these things.
Thank you so much for sorry.
A quick thing that I would add is if you're a student and you feel intimidated, like entering these spaces like Oxford and Cambridge, just remember that if you allow things like this to prevent you from going into spaces that you want to occupy, it's only going to make the situation worse and things will never get better. If you're a student who wants to go to these spaces, don't ever feel that you shouldn't because of your skin color or your financial background, or that you won't fit in. Like, take up these spaces, you deserve them, and you worked just as hard as anyone else, and you deserve to be there.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was really helpful. I think another thing just to add in general is that, yeah, like everyone said, we're doing this so the next group of people to go into Oxford and Cambridge have an even better experience. I think what we're working towards is just progressing and making everything better. I think where we are now is better than where we were before, and where we're going is even better than where we are now. So that's the best way to think of it. So yeah, let's move on to the last section. So we're just going to ask everyone to give one piece of advice for prospective Black students who are looking into coming to Oxford or Cambridge.
So my piece of advice would be your college matters. Wherever you end up, you will love, but it will be a different type of love and it'll be a different type of experience. For example, I was pulled to Newnham, absolutely love it. That would kind of tie into my advice. Don't be put off by all female colleges. It's fine, you'll find men, like you can interact with all different types of people. It's a really friendly environment, and make sure you check out the vibe of where you're at to see if it meshes with you or not.
I think my one tip would be kind of tying into what I just said. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve to take up these spaces. That was something that I really struggled with in my application. So many teachers were telling me that Oxford wasn't for people like me, or I wasn't smart enough, I hadn't worked hard enough, etc. But I mean, I'm here, and no teacher could take that away from me. So believe in yourself and believe in your ability. That's like the one thing that you need to hold on to throughout the whole of your application. You want to do this for a reason, and you are smart, you are intelligent, you deserve to get those spaces. So don't let anyone take that away from you.
Again, mine are quite simple, kind of building up on what Jess said. Just be yourself and enjoy the experience. Tutors want you for you. They want you for you, your own personal experiences, your own amazing interests. If you just be yourself, you know, you take time for yourself throughout the whole experience, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. And I think you'll find things a lot better if you just, again, be yourself. Again, you'll take so much from this experience. Even if you don't necessarily get an offer, going through the interview process, incredibly enriching experience, you know, writing a personal statement, really delving into your interests and what excites you, you're going to become a much better person for it regardless. So just enjoy the experience and be yourself.
Yeah, really just to echo what everyone else said, I'd say just kind of building on that is just to try and think of everything as like a journey rather than sort of like having an end goal. Because like what Phoenix said, you might not necessarily get in, but you've picked up so many skills along the way. So have your time where you're focusing on just your personal statement. This is the process of writing a personal statement. When you're doing your interviews, this is the process of doing interviews. And at the end of the day, there's only so many things that's in your control. So just try and focus and put your efforts in what you can control. And at least you know that whatever the result, you've tried your best for the things that you can control. Because there are some things that aren't in your control. And I think focusing on what you can do and the journey just makes it a just enjoyable experience.
I think for me, regardless of whatever university you go to, just take advantage of the access that you have to information, to your peers when you have really interesting conversations. For example, Ore and I talk about this all the time. We hated the library when we were at uni, but now we miss it so much because there was just a wealth of information that you just can't get access to now. So really try and take advantage of that because, yeah, when you leave, that's not something that you get to have.
Okay, my bit of advice would be, if you're in doubt about applying to Oxbridge, which I think a lot of people sometimes still are, apply and then decide. And I know that sounds maybe, I don't know, kind of specific, but I just think if you're in doubt, at least apply so you've given yourself the option, as opposed to just deciding that you're not going to go or deciding that you're not going to get in just because you have doubts. I think a lot of people were definitely unsure and thought they couldn't get it, but just went for it anyway and did actually get in and did actually end up having an amazing 3 years. So if you're in doubt, apply and then decide, is my opinion. Yeah, give it 100% and then you can decide after you get your offer.
Thank you so much, everyone. So we're just going to round up now. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be posting useful links and resources in the description, so make sure to have a look. Make sure to look out for future events and follow us on social media. Make sure you follow Oxford ACS at Oxford ACS on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. Make sure you follow Cambridge ACS at Cambridge ACS, Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you follow Taking Up Space, and I'm sure Ore and Chelsea wouldn't mind you following them either. There are some interesting events coming up with both of the ACSs. I think the Access conferences, the dates will be announced soon. So yeah, there are quite a lot of unanswered questions. So please make sure that if you have any urgent questions, you can just send them directly to Oxford and Cambridge. And also, you can also email them access@oxfordacs.org, access@cambridgeacs.org. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Cool. And give me a sec.